This film was great and needed, and I'll defend it till the day I die. After what felt like years of delays, Black Widow finally got her solo film, and honestly, I loved it. I've heard mixed reviews of this film, and honestly, I can agree with some of their criticism, but overall, I felt like this film was so important. This Black Widow movie was needed, not just for Scarlett Johansson to play Black Widow in a solo film, a film kind of dedicated to her. She's one of the OG 6 Avengers. I kind of felt like she was a little bit sidelined, with Clint as Hawkeye. I felt like those two characters were a little bit sidelined in these stories. I was just really excited to see this movie, and I'm glad that I watched it in the cinema. You need that big screen entertainment, you need that big screen movie. And this is my review of Marvel's Phase 4 Black Widow. It will contain some spoilers, but I'll have a spoiler section for that towards the end. And so on with my general thoughts of this movie. It was Natasha's origin story. It was set between Civil War and Infinity War, and you don't really see much character development between those two movies. It was really nice to see a film centered around Natasha Romanoff. And I just need to say, the intro sequence, the sequence at the beginning of the movie was one that kind of still haunts me now. I mean, this is definitely the best introduction to any Marvel movie. It's so deep and dark and depressing, and it's kind of a little origin story, a little background to the Red Room, and you really feel sorry for these girls. I definitely felt like this movie was more character driven than story driven. She's been a part of these big stories in Marvel, but you don't really know much about her character, or enough to kind of really fully connect to her character. So this movie is just learning a bit more about Nat and her kind of dealing with her past, and there's this really big family dynamic in the movie, and I loved every single character part of the family in this movie. All these new actors were a great addition to the MCU, and I really did just love that family dynamic, all the banter between them. The biggest dysfunctional family you will get, obviously, because they're a bunch of Russian spies, mind controlled to do all these bad things. All the scenes with Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh just stole the show. They were so funny. There were so many funny scenes in this, and I literally can't stop quoting so many lines throughout this film.
My plan was to drive us away.
Well, your plan sucks.
And David Harbour as the Red Guardian is just so funny, and Florence Pugh as Yelena is hilarious, and I would have liked to seen a bit more of Rachel Weisz as Milena. And so you have that family dynamic, but the thing that pushes the story forward is there's this villain, Taskmaster. The character's kind of a little bit sidelined, but how they built up that character in the film, it was really interesting, and you could have done so much with that character. Taskmaster would have been a really nice villain in this movie if they kind of went with the storyline that they set up. I did really like this movie, and if you haven't seen it already, I definitely recommend going to see it. And I just want to say that I'm really sad that she doesn't get her own trilogy, that Black Widow doesn't get her own trilogy, because of the Red Room. They're all Black Widows, and so Yelena, who was built up in that Red Room, is she going to pick up that mantle of the Black Widow? Yeah, I definitely see it. You've got Sam picking up as Captain America. You've kind of got Spider-Man picking up as Iron Man. Obviously, he's still his own. He's still Spider-Man. He's kind of delivering on that legacy. And so you will have Yelena as Black Widow bigging up on her big sister's legacy, and I'm really excited for what they have planned for her in the rest of the MCU. But this movie was just so good. We needed Black Widow to have her solo film. We need more women to have their solo film. We've had one Captain Marvel. We're gonna get a second Captain Marvel. I wish we could have had a trilogy of Black Widows, which just makes this movie so important for the girls, The girls need to see a strong woman in a leading role in her own solo film. I did really like this movie just for the characters alone. The story itself was weaker than the characters in it. I mean, we've seen so much of Nat in action, but just having this story to just sit back and watch her just be her, watch her have a little bit of fun. This movie was important, and this movie was needed. Maybe not for the character, maybe not for the story to be told. We've seen her in other things. We've seen her be a part of a story. Just her as herself, as a woman, in a solo film in Marvel, which so many people watch. That just makes this movie so important for young little girls who just want to look up and see a superhero. It's also sad that Scarlett Johansson herself, she didn't want to give up the character of Black Widow.
It's bittersweet to say goodbye, but when you love something, you need to set it free.
But it was really nice that it was a female-led directing and cast. So thank you, Cate Shortland, for bringing this film to light. And with that, I'm gonna get into my spoiler section of this video. The final end credit scene. ooh. Obviously, like compared to other end credit scenes, a little underwhelming, but it does set up a big thing for Yelena's character. She's going to be in the Hawkeye series, and so the end credit scene is Yelena at Natasha's grave. We finally get a little peace of mind. We don't see a funeral, but we see a grave. Valentina, who shows up in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, and this movie was supposed to be out before then. I don't know how much they changed about this end credit scene. She's already recruited John Walker to deal with threats that the Avengers don't deal with, and then she's already recruited Yelena. This is another mission she's getting, and she's like, do you want to know what happened to your sister? Do you want to like find the person who's responsible for her death? Flies over a little tablet, and on the tablet is a picture of Clint. It's a picture of Hawkeye. Yelena's going to kill Hawkeye. Yelena's going to kill her sister's best friend, the most family she's had. Now I want to talk about a bit more about Taskmaster as the villain. She's been gender swapped. He's been gender swapped. In the comics it's a man, but in the movie it's a female, and I have no prejudice against that, of course. So how they set up Taskmaster's character is that she is the daughter of Dreykov, who is in charge of the Red Room, and so Nat thought that her and Clint had already killed Dreykov, and in doing so they killed his daughter. They didn't confirm the kill, and it's funny because at the end of the film my brother brought out that they didn't confirm the kill again. So is Dreykov still alive? No, I'm gonna say no. He can't survive fire twice, can he? But yes, the daughter survives, Dreykov survives, and he kind of like Frankenstein's monsters her, where she's like rebuilt, but she's got a chip in her, and so he can control her. Taskmaster is like the villain, but kind of just like the muscle, the henchman, the person just like doing the heavy lifting, but it's actually like Dreykov controlling everything, and so Dreykov is like the villain, like the bigger villain than Taskmaster is. And Taskmaster can like manipulate any fighting style that she's seen, and so there was like a little fight between her and Red Guardian, and she like mimics the Black Panther claws, and if that was like an ode to Chadwick Boseman, I really did like that. But yeah, how they like built up Taskmaster, like the little story they set up for her in the beginning, that she wanted like revenge for Nat for like killing her, but because she was mind controlled and like none of it was her own, like that wasn't really a thing, and Nat does kind of get that redemption, but it doesn't really seem like it's weighing on her that much. That light weight of killing an innocent little girl only really shows up when Taskmaster is on screen. In Act 3 of all Marvel things, there's this massive fight scene where all the other Black Widows are surrounding Nat, like beating her up, trying to kill her, and obviously they're still mind controlled, so she can't do anything, and she's like being forced to fight off all these Black Widows who all have like the same level of training as Nat, and so it's kind of a unfair fight. But I did really like that fight scene, and it was intense. I was like, oh dang, is she gonna die again? Like die before she's dead? And I just want to say something. There is a line which really just unnerved me that Dreykov says, and he says that he's never gonna stop, and he's gonna keep using like the world's excessive natural resources, which are girls. He's gonna take every single girl to do his dirty work, manipulate them, build them up into these spies, up into these Black Widows, and that just like excessive natural resource. I felt that in my heart. I do have a lot of thoughts on this movie, and share me yours. Comment down below what you thought about this movie. Overall, I did really like it. I'd probably give it like a 9.5 out of 10 if I were to do any kind of rating like that. But if you like this video and if you like this review, please leave it a like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. Bye! Why do you always do that thing with the arm and the leg? It's a fighting pose. You're a total poser. What is that accent?